now, I know it's been a long time, and the only reason I'm filming a video now is for a class.
No matter who you are, this is still a very important issue that we all need to pay attention to, and that is how domestic violence and sexual assault is portrayed in the media and how it affects relationships.
We're going to read a little
Excerpt
from a scholarly article. I think we're going to discuss two of them.
So the first article is Sex in College Relationships, the Role Television Plays in Emerging Adults' Sexual Expectations in Relationships by Hilary Gamble and Leslie R. Nelson. Pretty much in summary, what it says is, in essence, television programming communicates to viewers that the male sexual role involves active pursuit of sexual activity to one's masculinity, whereas the female sexual role involves objectifying oneself for men's enjoyment and being virtuous but by not being sexual. These messages are most prevalent in the situation comedies, whereas sexual jokes, innuendos, and other verbal comments about sex make up most of the sexual messages. In addition, the most common sexual messages on television are about the male sexual role. So what is your interpretation of that?
There's not many cases where I've seen the female chasing after the male in the TV shows or the movies or whatever. And even when the male is chasing after the woman, it's like stalking in some situations, and that's not good. Also, it said something about the female her role is to objectify herself for the man in the movies and stuff, and that's not really healthy either. Because when you're objectifying yourself, I feel like you don't have a whole lot of control over like what you want yourself.
It's almost like in the movies, the female's solely there based on for the man's part. Like it's like, okay, it's like we've got this male character in the movie. Well, we've got to have something that he pretty much, it's like a possession kind of thing. It's like he's chasing after her to secure his own masculinity. And I think like historically that's where that's came into place. Like the male has always been taught from the beginning, you're supposed to be a gentleman, you're supposed to always pay, you're supposed to take care, you're supposed to open the door, you're supposed to do all these things for the female, and it just, in a way, I feel like it sets up like you're doing all these things for the girl. It's like she owes you in a sense, and I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
Like it's like
it's a power imbalance.
Yeah, and it can make the female feel as though she's not as, I guess, strong, or as that she can do things for herself
or able to like stand up for herself.
Right. Or for something that it's like, oh, he does all this stuff for me. It's like,
so I owe him.
So I can't. Yeah. So I can't like say no to certain things.
Yeah.
And that can lead to all sorts of different problems.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's a recipe, and that's like a building block for how like sexual assault and different kind of things can happen because of all those things that we just mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. Like the power dynamics and all that. So the second article, Skylar's gonna tell you who wrote it and what the title is.
Okay, so it's by Nancy Burns, and it's from Framing the Victim. And it says, most media stories focus on the victim. The victim is celebrated for having the courage to leave the abusive relationship, or conversely blamed for staying and letting the abuse continue. He or she is accused of provoking the abuse and is held responsible for ending the abuse. The victim is told to take back his or her power and refuse to tolerate the abuse anymore. Though not every story covers all these themes together, they represent the dominant portrayal of domestic violence in popular media. This focus may help build support for programs that help victims of domestic violence. However, it does little to help develop public understanding of the social context of violence, and may impede social changes that could prevent violence.
I think that what they mean is there's a lot of stuff put forth for the victim, but not a whole lot addressing the issue, the main issue, like why sexual assault and domestic violence happens in the first place. We do need victim support. We definitely need that, but I think also, we do need to do a lot better about having programs addressing what causes domestic violence and what causes sexual assault. What was you thinking about that?
Yeah, because it's like, it always is jumping in. It's like, oh, how are we going to help these people that have already experienced domestic violence, but the damage has already been done at that point. It's like, why can't we focus on how to help prevent it from happening in the first place and help spread awareness, which is something that I think even like videos like this on YouTube, or how different people can spread their stories and messages And I think that that should be a main focus.
And it also doesn't really help that popular TV shows and books like 50 Shades of Grey are out there that just are not good at all. And then the way sexual assaults and domestic violence is reported in the media and stuff. Weren't you talking about that Ray Rice example?
So pretty much with that whole situation in the media, like there was a report, he got in trouble for hitting his girlfriend, of course, in an elevator, and he got a 2-game suspension from the NFL. The thing is, 2-game suspension for domestic violence when people are getting more games for smoking marijuana and things like that, it's like saying where are your priorities. It's like, I mean, smoking weed's worse than beating a woman, literally. I mean, it's one of those things where you just need to like get the priorities straight. So after a video surfaced, after he'd already got the 2-game suspension, the video surfaced from him in the elevator actually swinging and knocking his girlfriend out. There was a whole video of it and you could actually see it happening. After that, there was an uproar. It's like, wow, 2 games for this, 2 games. The fact that the domestic violence had already happened, so it shouldn't take visual evidence for, it's like, okay, it happened because we saw it happen. It happens every day regardless if people see it. And the media just, it blew up on social media and things like that he did that thing. But it's like, well, we have to realize that domestic violence is a problem whether or not we see it. Anyway, after all that happened, he ended up getting an indefinite suspension, which it ended up going to 10 games, I think, and then he ended up getting suspended indefinitely. So it's just one of those things where we really need to pay attention to different things and not let the media always influence us, because we should have an uproar if there's a domestic violence case, if there's a woman with a black eye, if there's anything like that, or even a man with a black eye or anything. I mean, we should realize that this is an important issue and that we should spread awareness and help try to prevent things like this from happening.
Yeah, it's not easy for these women or men, definitely men, even harder for them to come forth and say, hey, I've been raped, or hey, I've been hit and all this stuff and abused, and it's not easy. So there are not a lot of cases of just coming out and lying about stuff. So I think we need to adopt a mentality where we like believe people when they come out and say these things, or are, I don't know about automatically believing, but we need to not automatically say, oh, they're just making that up.
I think that another thing that the article was talking about, it was talking about how it was on the victim to prevent it from happening. And I think that's unrealistic to say. It's like, okay, it's your fault it happened. It's not typically the abuser's fault because you didn't prevent it from happening. Well, that's insensitive, really. It's like, come on now. It's not their fault that abuse happened, and it's not their fault for not walking away, because there's all sorts of different situations, whether it be fear of losing their kids, fear, for their life. You can't just always assume that the victim could prevent things like that from happening.
No. Nobody asks to get hit or raped, or that's just ridiculous. So, there needs to be more focus on the abuser in these cases, I think.
Yeah, most definitely.
So that's it for the articles, but do you have any final thoughts?
It's just that awareness is really something when it comes to domestic violence and sexual assault. We really need to be sensitive to the victims who are involved and really listen to their stories. And we need to automatically not assume that they're lying. So we went to a conference and we saw a statistic that said 96 to 98% of domestic violence cases actually happen.
But a lot of times they get dropped. People that are reporting it drop the charges because the process of reporting and all the people that are not believing you, and they call it, is it secondary assault, they said?
Secondary, yeah.
Of the police officers that don't believe them, or just the whole thing of trying to report it and so many people not believing you. And
I just thought of something. This was also in sports, but there was another NFL player, his name was Greg Hardy. He got convicted in North Carolina for domestic violence. There's a loophole in North Carolina where he could actually appeal that ruling, and they went back to court, and the woman, she did not show up for the appellate case, and it was actually dropped. So certain things like that, you never know, and it's always a pause for concern for things like that.
There's a lot of stuff going on in North Carolina that I don't like right now. We need to be fixing some stuff. When did that happen?
I think the thing happened in 2014, but it was all going through 2015.
So there's a whole bunch of reasons that people would drop the case. Just because they dropped the case doesn't mean that it didn't happen, and it doesn't mean that we should ignore it and think that there's not a big big, huge problem about domestic violence and sexual assault. We need to be working on that. Anyways, thanks for watching. Whether or not you're a regular viewer on my channel or if you're one of my classmates, hey, give us an A. Bye.